Hi class, today we're going to cover the last of our motivational theories lessons. The first day you looked at the content theories of motivation, and then today we're going to go and take a look at the process theories and the reinforcement theories of motivation. So hopefully you've had a good, introduction into some of these theories with the content theories, as well as going through the Ottawa Valley's case. That will hopefully kind of take you through some of the ways to think about how motivation is not a one size fits all kind of thing, right? And so to be an effective leader, to be an effective manager, you need to kind of figure out how do I motivate my individual people to accomplish tasks at the best of their ability. And so today we start with process theories. And so, as the title suggests, process theories are more about kind of how things are done, the way in which things happen, whereas content theories were much more about what was in it or what did you get out of it, right? And so, the first process theory is the equity theory. And so, Jay Adams says that these theories are based on the social comparisons of how you're treated, right? So, you're motivated. Motivation depends on how you compare to other people and how you're treated compared to them. And so, they talk about how any sense of inequity motivates people to try to restore this equity. And so the motivation here is not about the job in itself, but the motivation is to be equal or to have some ethically sound decisions or to be treated fairly. Stuff like that is what's motivating you to act. And so people might look at compensation as a factor that they compare other people with. They talk about benefits, assignments, all these kinds of things are motivating people to look at how they are treated and trying to restore or trying to equate their treatment to other people's treatment, right? And so if you just think about any kind of civil rights movements or any movements to get more benefits, or to, if you think about same-sex marriage, right? So what are their motivations, right? They were motivated a lot of to obviously to be seen as who they are, but to get the same rights as maybe a married couple would, right? Where they weren't allowed to marry, yet they wanted the same rights and be treated equally to you know, to getting the same benefits that non same-sex partners can get, right? So they want to restore equity or to get equity that they want. Think about, if you ever hear about things like the pay wage gap, right? So if the perception is that women are paid less, people are going to try to restore that or to change that outcome, right? So let's just look at four specific actions or four specific things that might happen if there is an inequality that is seen. So one is changing work input to match the inequality that is perceived. So if you think back at our previous lessons on ethics, and you remember that that lesson we had on implicit prejudice, we talked about overclaiming of credit, those types of things. One of them I talked about was how individuals tend to overclaim credit, right? And so we talked about how, if you were to assign how much work you put in compared to other people, you would tend to overvalue your own work, right? And so this is kind of a similar scenario, whereas if someone sees that they're not being treated equally, right? They're not getting their fair share of the compensation or credit or whatever it is, they may change their um, work, right? They might change how much they work, how much they're putting into it, based on the fact that they're being undervalued, right? So they're going to not try as hard, work less, whatever it may be, and so they're going to restore that equity by lowering their work rate, right? To match what they believe, deserves that 10% less salary or whatever it may be. Two, changing the reward by addressing the inequity, right? So if you think about, so even think about our class, or think about any class you've been in where you have a test and you see a test that you did, and then you compare yourself to a peer, and it seems that they have gotten a higher mark than you based on the same work, right? And so then you will go to your teacher and you will address this and say, why did I lose marks here when so and so got 3 out of 3 on this, and I only got 2.5 out of 3 on this? And so you're gonna try to change your reward, get the extra mark by addressing the inequality to whomever is in charge of assigning grades or assigning salary or assigning whatever it is. So you're trying to make the change happen in the moment. Three, changing the comparison points to make things seem okay, right? And so here, a lot of people do this. Employers might do this. Individuals might do this. Um, and you may think that you are being compensated less. And so then maybe you'll look at something else and think, okay, well, I get that. And so I'm going to be making more in that sense. If you think about how someone may see, let's even say, a teacher's salary. You're saying, why do teachers make so much, or why do teachers make so little? They might change the comparison to a different job. And so even I would say myself, hey, am I paid fairly? Yeah, sure, I think I'm paid fairly, but I don't think I'm paid fairly compared to this profession. While maybe I'm paid too much compared to this other profession, right? And so you're just trying to change comparison points to change the perspective, to change the outlook, to see, what's happening here. Why does that happen? Why do I think that I make more or make less, or why am I getting less recognition for whatever it may be? And so sometimes individuals will change their comparison point to make them feel better, or they might change the comparison point to try to get themselves a raise or some kind of a recognition. Also, a boss or someone who's in charge might try to change the comparison point to justify that rate that they're getting paid, or change the comparison point to justify why they gave this person the promotion versus the other person the promotion, right? So everyone can change this comparison point to address this equity or lack thereof, right? To ensure motivation stays, right? And so the last one we're going to talk about is the changing the situation. So this is the easiest one. This is the most, not the easiest, but simplest to understand. People don't feel like they're being treated fairly or equally. They often will leave their job. They'll quit. They'll try to figure out how to get out of that job because they don't think that that's a place that they're being treated well. And so this is an interesting point where if you are not motivating your people will leave you, right? They won't just put up a stink, they will leave you, right? So a manager does not want to have high turnover. That's a wasted resource. That is wasting time, energy, and money rehiring, retraining, all these types of things for people that you want to have stay there, grow with your company, right? So the equity theory is very much talking about people want to be treated fairly. They want to be treated equally to what they deserve. Well, one important factor is that it is perceived, right? What you believe is your perception of the status of the state of being, right? I can't guarantee that you are right. I can't guarantee your boss is right, but it's what you perceive to be the case, right? You care very much about what others are doing, right? You might get paid and you might think you're being paid fairly, but as soon as you hear that the person in the next cubicle over to you is making more money than you, then you start to have an issue with it, right? There's perception in this that obviously people's implicit biases and prejudices are going to impact their perception, which makes the equity theory difficult, right? Difficult for employers to kind of see all sides. So the next theory we're going to look at is the expectant theory, and I quite like this theory just because I think it makes a lot of sense, and so let's just go over it. So Victor Vroom says people will do what they can do when they want to do it. So that seems very, very self-explanatory. It seems very logical. And so let's see what are these three factors that determine how motivated are you to work. So one, expectancy. So a person's belief that working hard will result in a desired level of task performance being achieved, right? So someone believes that if they put in this hard work, they're going to get a certain level of accomplishment in their task, right? And so a lot of this has to do with a lot of brain science. Talks about how when you tell students at a young age that they can't do math, then they're going to grow up not being good at math. Why? Because oftentimes they don't believe that they have the capability of being good at math, and so that even if they work very hard, they're not going to be able to get to that level of task performance, right? And so you have to believe that your hard work is going to result in something, right? Result in what you want to happen. Because if you don't believe that doing this is going to actually make a difference, then you're not going to be motivated to do it. So you have to expect a certain result, right? I hope that makes sense, right? So everything that you do, if you go into it with a negative mindset, oh, it's not going to work, then you're not unlikely to push through and follow through and be able to fight through the difficulties. And so that's the first of the three motivators, expectancy. The next is instrumentality. Okay, so you think that you do some hard work that will get you some sort of performance. Okay, so that's the expectancy. But then you have to have instrumentality in that you have to believe that that performance will be followed by a specific outcome or reward, right? So you may try to work hard and think, you know what, I'm going to be able to do this kind of stuff, or have this kind of skill, or lift this much weight, or whatever it may be. But then you have to believe that by doing that, you're going to get the reward. You're going to get the outcome that you desire, right? And so maybe it is to get into a specific school for getting a certain mark, right? If you don't believe that that performance is going to lead to a specific outcome, then again, what's the point in the performance, right? What's the point in working hard to get the performance if you still don't think the outcome will take place, right? You could work hard because you want to get a promotion, and you think that to get a promotion that you're required to do all these tasks and everything, right? But if you don't believe that finishing all these tasks is going to end up resulting in a promotion, then why do it, right? The third is valence. Valence is the value a person assigns to the possible reward and other work-related outcomes. And so, again, you have the performance. So the hard work leads to your performance. The performance leads to a specific outcome or reward. And then you ultimately have to value that outcome or reward, right? You have to think that that outcome or reward is something of significant value that you want to do, you want to get, right? And is that reward enough to justify all that hard work you put in the first step, right? Right. So you have to have these three factors. You have to have expectancy, you have to have instrumentality, and you have to have valence, right? Like, so let's work backwards here. So maybe ultimately the possible reward is becoming a doctor, right? And you have high value on becoming a doctor, right? You have to be able to get successful academic performance to become a doctor, and therefore you have to have enough hard work to get the academic performance to become the doctor, right? So one, if you don't think you can work hard to get the academic levels and grades to become a doctor, or to get into medical school, then you're not going to do it. Okay, assuming that you can do that, assume you get into medical school, or get the grades to get into medical school, you have to believe that you'll actually become a doctor. Okay. Next, you actually have to care to become a doctor, right? That's why a lot of parents want their kids to be doctors. But if the kid doesn't actually want to be a doctor, it's very unlikely that they're going to end up becoming a doctor, because they don't value that valence or that reward, or they'll become a doctor and then quit that job or whatnot, right? So all three of these things have to be in place. And so this last equation, motivation equals E times I times V. One valuable thing here is that it's good to understand that if any of the E, I, or V equals 0, then motivation is 0 ultimately, right? You have to have all three of these things in a specific task or job or whatnot for you to have good motivation to do it. The next is goal setting theory. And so goal setting theory is pretty straightforward. Lots of people have told you throughout your lives to set goals, right? Goals enable you to keep staying motivated, enable you to accomplish tasks in these time frames that aren't so long term that they're hard to see, right? So you want to make sure that you have a direction. So you have to have a goal, because that goal provides you direction. Where you're trying to go, where you're trying to get, what you're trying to do. The goal should clarify your expectations. The goal should be very clearly stating, what you expect to happen, right? Your goals should establish a frame of reference, right? So where did you start, right? Where do you want to get to, right? Make sure you can always kind of see the start and the finish, timelines, all those kinds of things. Foundation for self-management. How are you going to get there, right? Are you going to try to accomplish this on your own volition, right? I hear about all these kinds of things. There's these workout plans, all these kinds of things. It's like on these commercials, they say, if you could have done it yourself, you would have done it already, right? You need a method to manage yourself to get this goal done. So make sure you set your goals in the right ways to make sure you are accomplishing what you want to do, right? So like imagine your goal was to just start working out, right? If you don't have an end goal in mind, what do you want to get to? It's very difficult to do a workout because the results are so slow, right? Also, your goal shouldn't be to be the CrossFit champion because ultimately that goal is, that's years and years and years and years away. Maybe that can be an ultimate goal later, but that you need to kind of clarify your expectation within this month, year, all these kinds of things. You often want to keep track of your progress to get frame of reference to actually see improvement, right? Because without the wins, without the gains, without the improvements, you're likely to bound to stop, right? And you have to manage yourself somehow, right? Whether that be an app, whether that be a workout partner, whatever it may be, you want to be able to manage how you get to that goal, right? So set the right goals in the right ways for you. You have to make this goal setting system work, right? If it's not done right, it's not going to work. And so the goals should be very specific, right? I want to accomplish this by this age for this company for whatever reason, right? Two, they have to be challenging, right? If you set goals that are so simple, it's not motivating you to push harder. The goal has to be just challenging enough, accomplishable but not easy, right? Doable but have value, right? You have to feel good about accomplishing it. Build goal acceptance and commitment, right? So now we start to think about talking about how to manage the leaders kind of use this stuff, right? So be specific so your people understand, be challenging so your people are challenged to push hard, but also you need goal acceptance from yourself as well as your people, right? Again, fair process is going to help a lot with this because people have to understand the goal and accept the goal and commit to the goal. Otherwise, their motivation is going to be likely a little bit lower than what you'd want it to be. What are the priorities in complex business structures, complex groups of people? It's going to be very difficult when everyone's doing their own thing to make sure everyone's aligned unless you've already clarified what are the priorities in this task. And then feedback. You have to give feedback to your team at all times, right? They need to know that they're on the right track. They need to know that they're doing well, or they need to know that they're not. So you could correct them, send them on a different direction. And there have to be rewards, right? You have to reward people for accomplishing tasks. So the next theories of motivation are going to be the reinforcement theories of motivation. So we've already done content, we've already done process, and now reinforcement. And so reinforcement theories focus on the external, right? They focus on changing how motivated you are based on things outside of you, okay? And so E.L. Thorndike says this: law of effect. Behavior that results in a pleasant outcome is likely to be repeated, and behavior that results in an unpleasant outcome is likely not to be repeated. So, right, that is fairly simple. You all understand this, but let's see how that actually works. And so here are some reinforcement strategies, and the language here is very specific, so make sure you keep focused on the language to make sure you have a good understanding of what each one is. And so you want to control behavior by manipulating what happens. And so when I say consequences, I don't necessarily mean always bad things. Consequences here is talking more about just outcomes, right? Something you do something, and there's going to be an outcome from what you do, and this is operant conditioning. Okay, and so when you think about behavior modification, right? I'm not sure if you've talked about it or thought about that before, but behavior modification talks about how are we going to change people's behavior by giving consequences, punishments, rewards, all these kinds of things. And so think about detentions. Think about someone taking away your Xbox, or thinking about here's money for every grade you get. This is all operant conditioning. Okay, and so let's look at the different styles of operant conditioning to see exactly what is what. So first, positive reinforcement. So you want to pair a positive consequence. So positive consequence being an outcome. So that's not bad. So consequence is not bad as a reminder. Positive outcome to a desirable behavior. right? So something good is done by the individual, your employee, your pet, whomever, and then you give them a positive consequence or a positive outcome. Okay? So you want to get the person to do something desirable and then give them something good. Okay? One, law of contingent reinforcement. For best results, the reward must be delivered only with the positive behavior. And two, the law of immediate reinforcement. For best results, the timeliness of the reward creates greater reinforcement. So this situation you want to think about when you're training a dog. So you're training a dog to roll over or to beg or give a paw or whatever, right? So you're trying to get them to shake a paw all the time. So that's the desirable behavior. Their behavior of shaking a paw is going to be paired with giving them a treat, right? The positive consequence is a treat. The desirable behavior is shaking a paw, right? So law of contingent reinforcement, only give them the treat when they do it. Law of immediate reinforcement, give them the treat right away, right after they do it. So that is positive reinforcement. The next one is negative reinforcement, okay? So pairing a negative consequence, so an outcome that is bad, to not doing the desirable behavior. Okay, so let's be very clear. Not doing a desirable behavior is not the same as doing a bad behavior, right? The desirable behavior is shaking the paw. Not shaking a paw isn't like a bad behavior, it's just not doing the good thing. And so in the situation is you're going to give them a negative outcome, a negative consequence, because they didn't do what you wanted them to do. Okay? That is negative reinforcement. The next is punishment. So you want to discourage an undesirable behavior, so doing something bad, so tearing up a pillow if it's a dog, chewing up the slippers or whatever, by pairing a negative consequence, right? The dog pees on the ground, on the carpet, and so they get put in the crate, whatever it may be, whatever that consequence is, right? So you are punishing an undesirable behavior by giving a negative outcome, okay? And the last one is extinction. Discouraging an undesirable behavior by removing a positive consequence. So maybe this individual has, you've given one of your workers access to the company car, but then they do something bad, so you remove that positive outcome from them. And so they are going to hopefully stop doing the bad behavior because they want to get that positive consequence or that positive outcome back. So the language is very specific, so I hope you understand the language. Those are your reinforcement, that is your reinforcement theory of motivation. So again, today we did process theories and reinforcement theories. If you have any questions, please send me admin messages. I believe it's hopefully straightforward, but again, ask me at any point if you need any help.